Greetings, ladies and metal-gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Only Ones Who We Could Trust. Written by FarmWitch4275. We approached the station, at the system's edge, with trepidation and discomfort. The military fleet protecting it stared at us with a complement of weapons that would terrify even the most fearless generals. There was, supposedly, a good reason for it. The star system, with its vibrant blue star, made the area all the more menacing. The star system itself was saturated in dozens upon dozens of differently sized and shaped stations, each one being the same strange paint scheme: red body, blue trim, green stripes. A disgusting but obvious paint scheme that marked this particular place as something not to be messed with. The whole galaxy knows about this system, and only those who are insane, desperate, or have a job to do come to this place. But few ever knew what it was actually for. I could feel the tingles in my chitin from the objects sitting locked away in the vessel's nesting doll-style crates and boxes in our cargo hold. I looked to my left and right, noting how our priests were still vigilant, muttering silent prayers as we moved through the void. We approached the main station, a more decorated and less terrifying-looking facility, overshadowed by the vast menacing hull of Terran battle cruiser. That was another thing about the system. The humans controlled it exclusively, and that was an extreme rarity with the friendliest in the galaxy, a species that outwardly engaged with everyone they could find, choosing this one star system to hold not only a massive, hideously dangerous warship fleet, but also to do so in complete isolation. I moved the ship gently into a place alongside the station and slid us as carefully as I could into the docking bay slot that we were allotted. A voice spoke up from the intercom. "You are now docked to Special Objects Containment Bureau Station 01. Identify yourself and explain your mission immediately," the voice barked. Wait, I am Captain Cloxhag of the Kempakani Imperium. I believe we have an appointment," I replied, above the soft chanting of the priests. "Hold on, please, affirm ID checkout. One satellite-class destroyer with a crew of 94, serial number Epsilon Echo 2283. Class 2 shields and engines. Welcome aboard. Do not offload your cargo as of yet, and shut down your shields so that we can deep scan your cargo hold, please," the voice replied. "Affirmative, shutting down the shields and disabling blast containment on the central hull. Please do not disturb the priests. They must not cease their vigil," I said, and did as told. "Affirm, please hold. Scanning." A few tense moments of silence. One solid object appears to be some kind of box or chest, locked in several layers of lead and titanium containment. Must be quite the thing if you've got all this going. "All right, the containment team is on the way. Please open the cargo hold and stand by for exchange." "Understood. Equalizing pressure and opening bay doors. Ship is now on standby. I'm under orders to oversee the exchange. I'm heading down. Keep your men off the ship until I get down there, please. This thing is, angry," I remarked. The priest beside me emitted a short litany that echoed through the ship. I shuddered in fear and made my way down to the cargo hold. I stopped at the entrance as a priest slid over my chitinous neck and a holy necklace before I walked in. The cargo hold itself was foreboding, lit by various candles and the stench of various holy essences burning in the air, mixed with the telltale stench of wood decay. It was angry it was out of its home. In the center of the room, surrounded by a group of 10 priests, all in their stately robes, muttering prayers and sealing chants gathered around a large black metal cube suspended by cables from the ceiling. I could feel it looking at me, watching me. I released the blast shields and the cargo doors and revealed a group of very strangely dressed humans waiting outside. 5 of them. They stepped forward and took a look around the place, making sure not to interrupt the priest's chanting. One looked back and snapped his fingers. 10 more humans appeared and silently moved about, spraying some kind of liquid onto the surfaces they could. All of them in heavy hazmat suits that squeaked as they moved, carrying tanks of liquid on their backs. The more they sprayed the liquid, the calmer I felt, as if they were driving the thing away. I could no longer feel it watching me for the first time in days. They sprayed the area, deliberately avoiding the priest's standing areas, and then used some strange tool to measure the area around it. The soldiers in hazmat suits cleared the room and checked other parts of the ship, eventually giving the leader a silent signal with some hand gestures. I gestured for one of the men to come closer and handed him a note when he did. He politely asked if I could activate my recording and identifier system so I could relay what was going on to the Emperor, who ordered this whole operation. He wrote on the pad with a pen he had saying it was okay, but to not speak until the exchange was complete. I turned on the ident system and connected to the soldiers' network. It displayed names and ranks above everyone's heads. I looked at the 5 humans who seemed to command this operation. Each one wore a different uniform. The one who seemed to command the soldiers wore a long black leather coat, a wide-brimmed hat, and a black mask fashioned to appear like a bird's beak. He was named the Plague Man. One was wearing a heavy scarlet and black cloak, a heavy gas mask, and I could see some very heavy cybernetic augmentations. He was named the Ingenuity. One wore a set of metal armor, similar to that worn by my ancestors, but with some modern parts such as a gas mask, radio, and various other modern accessories. The uniform, white and silver, adorned with a large red cross. He was named the Crusader. The 4th man wore a set of robes similar to that of our own priesthood, but black, heavy leather, and wearing white gloves and white mask. His ID named him as the Father. The last man wore what can only be described as tribal equipment, modern underclothing with animal pelts and animal skulls as accessories, and he himself wore an animal skull as a mask. He was named the Shaman. I feel a presence most foul within this contraption. He is angry. He did not want to be moved from his home, the Father spoke. The priests all emitted a short chant as the box seemed to shake without provocation. The chant calmed it down somewhat. Malicious entity detected. Containment is minimal. Physical interaction deterred. Heavy psionics presence detected. The machine spirit has refused access. It was not given to whom it was crafted for. It is restless. It angers. The Ingenuity spoke, waving a mechanical hand at the box. There was so much I wanted to say, but I stayed silent as they worked. His name is the Khan of Clan Volam, and he does not like that Caltech stole his wine chest. I see, made by a broodmate long ago. Such a tale, a common one. He is very, unhappy about it. The Father spoke again. This made my eye stalk snap to attention. They knew all that from looking at it. No. Why was I being so stupid? No, it was talking to them. They could hear it, and it was speaking. How could they understand it, though? That part I found strange. I bit my tongue and stayed quiet. Will this one be released, or will this one linger? I say the latter. He resents, he hates, he cannot let go, the Crusader remarked, shaking his head. Exercise, extricate, remove, no, cruel, too cruel. It was not his fault. He deserves a release of his own terms, the Father remarked. He cannot obtain it. The revenge he wants cannot be done. Justice was served long ago, but it was not by his hand. He resents fate. The shaman spoke calmly. Then we give him peace, give him solitude, give him the chance to think. He will vacate under his own terms. Too many minds, too many emotions. He cannot process his own mistakes when others are nearby. Leave him be, and he'll pass in his own terms, the Ingenizer said. The 5 stood in silence for a moment, head bowed. Then they all said, yes, alone, at once, and the box shuddered angrily. The priests all chanted a short litany to calm it down. I could already feel a headache building. It was angry, struggling against the chains, but the containment cubes kept it steady. We must leave this to the sanguine. They must handle this one to ensure it has no way out. Cleanse this place, the plague doctor barked and snapped his fingers. The soldiers all moved in perfect concert, spraying the cube down with more of their strange substance before hastily evacuating the cargo bay. The doctor pointed at me and with a hand signal commanded me to follow him outside. I followed as requested and carefully, quietly walked outside to wait for him. The 5 men all stood silent to the side of the gangplank when another group of humans, all dressed in stark white, bald, a mix of male and female, all wearing stranger headgear than the 5 men. They each wore simple, almost transparent white robes that left very little to the imagination. But the things on their heads, a selection of cybernetically augmented thorned crowns, strange regalia, and unusual devices that formed halos or rings on their head. They each silently walked through the cargo bay and snaked through the priests, who were still muttering prayers and chants to calm the entity in the box. They surrounded the box and raised their hands in reverence. As they did, a new door in the station opened. These guys I easily recognized. The humans and their galaxy-famed medical corps, professionals in military uniforms with doctor accessories, and those big purple crosses emblazoned on their uniforms. And the legionnaires, the 7-foot-tall human abominations they call super soldiers, thanking them. I watched through my security feed as the strange humans in odd headgear began to chant something. The language was unintelligible by even the best of minds, and watched in astonished horror as the metal shell of the box began to melt by itself. They charted away their cant, peeling away layer after layer of the metal cube we placed under it to secure the damned thing in the first place. Then I saw it. My headache got worse, very suddenly, and the priests chanted more fervently and more piously as the box was slowly exhumed from its melted containment. There it was, in all its miserable splendor, a small wooden wine chest with a military-grade lock on its doors. The humans all gathered around it and chanted loudly, the noise filling the entire station. The chant apparently worked. The chest suddenly became enveloped in a small bubble shield, or something of the kind, and my screaming headache suddenly stopped. The group all then wandered off, with one of the humans, a female in this case, carrying the chest in front of her, presumably with some kind of telekinesis. She held it aloft just above her hands, and for the first time since I started this job, I felt no fear or headaches when I looked at it. I opened my mouth to breathe, and the hand was immediately snapped in front of me to shut me up. The group quickly made their way back through the doors they came from, and a shuttle quickly arrived to carry them to the next destination. I watched as the group of humans in white carried the chest to its new home. The shuttle disconnected from the network and left. After it passed a certain distance, the chanting suddenly stopped. Alarms blared, and the station suddenly rushed into full service as the medics charged into my ship. The priests and a few members of the crew collapsed, passed out, or fell to the ground clutching their heads in pain or exhaustion. Within seconds, the entire ship was swarming with medical personnel. Half of the crew were put on gurneys and carted off to the medical facilities on the station, and the other half were assisted to recuperate in their own quarters or helped as such by the medics. I stood with a mix of concern and relief as I watched a legionnaire carry my poor ensign, who was a sensitive soul, especially to this nonsense, straight out of the ship and into the starbase with urgency. It is over. It is over. Please tell me it's over, I said, breathing heavily. The shaman walked up to me and nodded to his compatriots. They walked away as a medica came up beside me and handed me a bottle of water before starting to do the physical checkup on me too. I sat down on a gurney myself, and I let them do their medical checks uninterrupted. Indeed it is. You were right to bring it to this place. We haven't had a non-human entity be that aggressive before. It was an interesting challenge. The shaman spoke, his voice gravelly and old-sounding. Would you please tell me what exactly happened there? I asked. Standard hostile entity containment protocol. Secure the ship to the station, scan it for a target, then dock it up. Phase 2, infiltration. Hazmat team sent in with canisters of aerosolized holy water and holy oils to purify and decontaminate. Phase 3, diagnosis. We listen, we wait, we question, we learn. Once we know what we are dealing with, Phase 4, relocation. Entity is released from containment, put into the hands of the sanguine ones, and taken to its respective containment zone. Now it is Phase 5, recovery. It is very often with transport of such dangerous entities that crews become exhausted or sick from exposure, or simple work to keep it contained. Standard procedure, he said calmly. I see, thank you. It is all part of the job. Don't worry about it. Quite an angry one, this. One of the most aggressively hostile entities we've had in many a decade. Out of curiosity, what's the story behind it? He asked.
The story behind it is that it is a very old relic, from way back before our entry into space. An ancient warlord in our tribal days crafted it for a broodmate. The broodmate was killed by a rival warlord, and the chest stolen before its creator mysteriously disappeared. It passed hands through various means and generations. It is known to cause nightmares and serious discomfort to anyone in its vicinity for too long. It's been regarded as a haunted artifact for centuries, but it started going off the rails these last few years, and several of our own have, not survived encounters with it in the last few months. The chest drove them insane and, well, you can guess what happened, I replied, still catching my breath. Ah, traditional forlorn lovers, an ancient rivalry distilled into classic case of haunted furniture. Strangely common occurrence, more than you would think of, but it rarely happens to this degree. The connections must have been quite impressive. Usually the spirits find their peace or simply fade away after a time. If they didn't, most furniture that exists would be haunted in some way or another. In any case, it's taken care of now. The spirit will leave in due time, and we'll make sure that it won't ever come back when it does, he said. That can happen? I asked.
Oh, yes, very much so. This is a simple case of isolating him. See, spirits like this feed off anger and hatred of others around it, feeding off emotions. Isolate it for a time, and the spirit will find nobody to feed off of, and starve itself out. Eventually, it'll begin to introspect. Instead of hatred of others, it'll find the peace it needs to ask itself questions. It's basically the same concept as putting a troublesome child into a corner to think for a time while the world carries on without them. It'll take several years, if not a decade at most. But time heals all wounds. We have been here before. This entire star system is a testament to that fact. We have over 600 entities just like the box you brought in, stored and secured in the system, most of which have come from Earth alone, he remarked with a chuckle. That number made my heart rate spike, much to the annoyance of the medics still working away. 600 things that drive people insane are stored here. 618. Counting your haunted chest. Cursed objects, haunted dolls, anomalous items, dangerous one-time experiments and contraptions, strangely poisonous objects, you name it, we have it. In fact, see that ship over there, he said, pointing to a cruiser anchored above a moon nearby. Yes, is it carrying a haunted object? I asked. No, it is a haunted object. That is the ISS Daedalus, the most haunted object in the known galaxy. A ship that went through 20 years of service as a hospital, a mental asylum, a death row prison ship, and 2 tours as a captured vessel in pirate fleet. It mysteriously disappeared into a wormhole during its last voyage, later re-emerging with all crew found dead by various means a century later in a star system orbiting a gas giant. Nobody in the galaxy can spend more than 20 minutes on board that vessel without psionic containment or protection of some kind. The screams alone drive people insane within minutes. As stated, it's more common than you think, but most objects lose their entities within the first few days before becoming inert. Something truly bad has to happen to something before it gets into that state. Thankfully, it's very rare for it to get that bad, he remarked casually.
That is horrifying. You seem to have an abnormal amount of experience with these occurrences. Is your entire home planet haunted or something? I asked offhandedly.
Well, yes. Earth is very active in terms of paranatural activity. But that is besides our current point. It's okay. We've gotten used to it. We find chasing ghosts to be kind of fun, to be honest. There's an entire genre of entertainment where the objective is to be scared. Quite the business, he said, his animal skull contorting naturally into a sly smirk. I glared at him half shocked, half horrified, as the medic finished his job and gave me a clean bill of health. Clear to go, Captain. You don't seem as exhausted as the rest of your crew. Gotta hand it to you. Still need rest and food, though, so the cruiser will be on shortly to evacuate the crew to Tartarus Station nearby, the medic said as he returned my uniform to its proper state after the exam. I'm an officer, after all. I have to be made of stronger stuff. I had to take over after my pilot passed out. Is everyone okay? I asked. Severe exhaustion, mild dehydration, and fatigue. Ship logs say that you've been at full cap for 4 solid days transporting this thing. You should have told us about it first. Would have sent one of the Backwatch Company's ships to take this off your hands, he said. The situation on the border zone is tense. It would have caused some issues politically. Decided to just do it so as to keep foreigners out of our affairs. And to raise any questions from prying eyes as to why the heavily armed human fleet just took a national treasure away from us when nobody was looking, I said. A national treasure? That haunted chest is a historic artifact, then. That makes it a bit more urgent, the shaman replied. We have a replica made to replace it as a spot in the museum it rested in. After months of preparations, of course, and 5 deaths to put it into the ship in the first place. But, well worth it. Nobody will know it's gone, and it can rest here until it's ready to come back home, if that's even possible. We took a huge gamble here. Seems it'll pay off in the end. In any case, let's get going. I need a cup of tea, I said, and clambered back onto my spindly feet. Indeed, as do we all. Looks like the cruiser is here. I have been told to accompany you for a tour of Tartarus Station. See you there, the shaman said and walked away. The medic gave me an encouraging pat and a thumbs up before returning to the other crew members. I stayed calm and wandered about a bit before a human battlecruiser appeared alongside the station and brought all of us aboard. Most of us were still exhausted and slept through most of the journey. But the very next day, we were on board Tartarus Station, a stark contrast to the previous place. It was full-scale tourism hub with hotel, restaurants, gift shops, and a full-scale museum built into it. It seemed overtly extravagant, at least to our humble eyes. I went to the restaurant first thing and finally acquired my desperately needed cup of tea and chocolate chip cookies. A human-made delicacy my species has become hopelessly addicted to. Shamelessly so. I breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed for the first time in 2 weeks since I began this commission. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, and when I opened them, the shaman was sitting in front of me, casually slurping a bowl of soup of some kind. Hello again. You seem a lot better. That is because I am. Tea is fuel for the body and soul, I replied, quickly regaining my composure. Prefer a good cup of joe, to be honest, but to each their own, he said as he slurped his soup. Lovely. So I presume you have questions? Asked them. What is this place anyway, and how, dangerous are some of the artifacts that you have stored here? I asked. Tartarus Station itself has replicas or photographs of artifacts stored in its museum wing. I'll be happy to give you a tour of the facility after we have had lunch, he said with a bony smile. As for how many, 618 artifacts in total. Some are so dangerous we cannot have a replica or even a photograph of it, lest they become artifacts themselves. Your little box is trivial compared to some of the artifacts we hold here. I see. How bad can it get? I asked, stirring my tea. Well, for example, Station 17 contains a painting. It is titled The Crying Woman, and is presumably made by a lost bride during a bout of hysterical insanity before her death. Station 17 has had to be rebuilt several times owing to peculiar equipment failures and odd occurrences. Indoor rain, for example. When it was just started raining inside the room the painting was stored in. One time, when the walls began to leak blood, and another when the station's windows all shattered because of the ear-piercing shriek of a woman screaming. Despite the fact the station was empty, he said, slurping his soup again.
By the gods, that's excessive.
Yes. Not quite as malevolent as the haunted chair, mind you. In Station 4, a chair is mounted on the ceiling in a locked room. It belonged to a well-known serial killer who, after his final meal, decreed that all who sat upon the chair would die. Indeed, after he was executed, everyone who sat in the chair met an untimely end. Most famously, we have in Station 4, stored in a different room, of course, Robert the Doll. Robert was a doll made by we don't know, actually, for a child as a gift. The doll is well known to be haunted, as it can be seen moving on its own, disappearing from its containment. Child laughter can be heard around it, and some children have been recorded talking to it, and it talking back when we know for a fact nobody else was in the vicinity. Quite a peculiar piece, Robert. Not malicious or malevolent, just, mischievous, he said, finishing his soup. I finished my tea and listened. Station 12 has an entire house, including the foundation and dirt from the yard stored in it. The place was a haunted manor in which a cult once lived. Legends state that over 200 people lost their lives in that place to the cult's rituals and rites. The place was so haunted and so malevolent that eventually we just took the entire damn thing up and stored it there. To this day, we have recording devices inside the station. Shadows moving in and out of focus. Haunted sets of red eyes just in random places, staring at the cameras. Odd objects moving about despite the fact the whole place is kept in a vacuum chamber. And then this Station 52. Oh boy. That place holds the Skakandi Book of Evil at the moment. Nobody but the sanguine can go near that place without hearing voices or seeing shadows. Then there's Station 80, which contains 3 artifacts. The oddly poisonous drinking jug, which provides 3 types of highly toxic substances when you put any kind of liquid in it. Despite the fact that we have conducted many experiments and tests, and can find no origin point for the poison that it creates. The funniest by far, even Bobo the Clown Car, is a box of haunted panties. It's nothing more than a cardboard box of underwear. But anyone who gets close to it starts to uncontrollably giggle for no real reason. And sometimes they can't stop laughing. Several people have laughed themselves into a coma from being too close to it. And then there's the vile mask. A simple mask, right? Wrong. Anyone who puts it on goes insane. I'm talking complete, totally talking to the trees, shit on the walls. My old man is made of mushrooms, babbling brook, barking mad insane. And a few lesser-known artifacts. The Hope Diamond and its well-known curse. Whoever owns it suffers an untimely end. A necklace cursed by an ancient queen that haunts the dreams of anyone who puts it on. A cursed pirate's chest that causes anyone who takes one of the coins to suffer unimaginable misfortune. The ancient warrior masks that cause injuries to pregnant women and unborn children to anyone in the vicinity. But nobody else. We've never figured that one out. Just a taste of what we have stored here. Mostly human artifacts, of course, but we are more than ready to take in anything the galaxy at large doesn't want to or cannot handle, he explained, as casually as I suspected he could.
Why? Why take the burden? Freely, no less. I face no fines or tariffs for the task.
Because nobody else will. If not us, then who? He said coldly, almost with regret in his voice.
I felt a pang of shame. It was true. We would rather they handle it because we couldn't.
Besides, we've been dealing with this for thousands of years. In the end, we are better at it than most, so we handle it anyway. He smiled his bony smile.
Does that mean that I have permission to explain what is going on here? Most of the galaxy is ignorant of this place and its purpose. I only learned about it in passing from the commissar who gave me the task to bring the chest here. Would you be opposed to having more business? I asked.
Not in the slightest. But do remember, you saw what we had to go through here, just for your little chest. We must be informed of the task beforehand so that we can prepare accordingly. We cannot afford mishaps or impatience. We will send you home with a full procedure plan and contact details, he replied.
How do you fund this enterprise? Those stations looked, expensive. The people look expensive, I remarked.
Tourism. The curiosities and replicas we have decontaminated, cleaned or replicas of them that can be found in the museum here. And we get millions of visitors every year. This place often pays for itself. Gift shops, restaurants, and all cycles through, plus a few, government and private subsidies every now and then, to pay for replacements or new warships to cover the star system. Sometimes collectors will donate to us, and private entities will sometimes volunteer for service for a tax cut. It's all legal, all recorded, so don't worry. No nefarious operations are ever conducted here. We've already passed both our own and Galactic Council's inspections, he replied frankly.
Fair. Shall we go back and check the museum of yours? Is it just curiosities and replicas, or do you have some other things? I asked.
Oh, indeed. It is more than just a creepy thing museum. A lot of our history is stored independently here for security and safety reasons. Come, let me take you on a tour.
He smiled and stood up. A few priests and crewmen had been listening to our conversation and followed us. The Emperor needs to know. The galaxy at large needs to know this too. Atharia, 050 Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.